Hello and welcome to our special broadcast, Health with Sneha, where we talk about all things health. I'm Sneha Mordani. Today we are going to be talking about packaged foods and how does one really know or identify which packaged food has excessive salt, excessive sugar, much beyond the permissible limit, and what really isn't food in a packet, and what is just being given to us is just sugar or is just salt. The FSSAI has spoken about health star ratings for food products. There's been a lot of conversation in the last few years about front of the pack labeling when it comes to food items, to talk about how many, to talk about the kind of sugars they have, the kind of preservatives they have, to talk about the kind of salt they have if there is excessive salt. But that hasn't been implemented. Front of the pack labeling has not been implemented. Instead, the food safety regulator in India is looking at something called the health star rating. Is this a good thing? The FSSAI says yes, it is. It's going to help the consumer identify the food and the kind of benefits and the risks and the problems associated with the food. But experts say that this could be misleading. Why so? To talk about that and much more, I have with me Mr. Amit Khurana. He's associated with the SCC, and he, of course, is the program director for Sustainable Food Systems. Thank you so much, Mr. Khurana, for joining us. All of you have spoken about health star ratings and why that shouldn't be the way forward. The FSSAI seems to have made up its mind on implementing this. First of all, do take us through the details of what exactly are health star ratings and why you're not in favor of it.
Okay, thank you very much, Sneha. I lost you in between, but I think I understand the broad essence of the question. Um, so I think the main issue here is a health star rating versus a warning label. Uh, Let me briefly tell you what is the main difference. Health star rating is a summary indicator. It's a type of labeling system which basically does not tells you how much of salt, sugar, or fat or calories a product has. Whereas, and it does not warns you. Whereas a warning label actually fulfills the purpose. The entire purpose of addressing NCDs through discouraging unhealthy foods, unhealthy packaged foods. And that's why the word warning label, and that's the global practice. So Health Star is something which will give you, which will not be nutrient specific. So in the beginning, you just mentioned that consumers would like to know how much of salt, sugar, or fat a product has. And that's what we need to tell the consumer. But Health Star rating will not tell you. It will just give you stars, and it will not give you the actual critical information required. Whereas a warning label will clearly tell you that yes, in this particular product, salt, let's say, or sugar or fat is beyond or higher than a particular threshold level. So that's the broad difference. Health Star is summary indicator, warning label is nutrient specific front of pack labeling system meant to warn the consumer. And why there is a need to warn the consumer? Because it is clearly known that packaged foods high in salt, sugar, and fat are addictive. They are ultra processed. They are globally linked with bad health, ill health, and therefore, just like cigarettes, they are also addictive. Just like nicotine in cigarettes, salt, sugar, fat is also addictive, and therefore consumers need to be warned about it. On the other hand, Health Star will actually legalize or glorify these unhealthy bad foods. And the fact that consumer would not get to know about which nutrient, how much high, and these could be manipulated and misused because of the algorithm at the back end used by the industry. Therefore, these labels are called misleading labels. I mean, these can very well mislead the consumer. In fact, they would be counterproductive. They would not do good, but they might as well do more harm than doing good.
Basically, you're saying that it's going to not help consumers be more informed or informed to begin with about the science of nutrition, essentially, which is all the more important in our country given the increase in NCDs, essentially.
Yes. It is clearly something that is not going to help consumer. It is clearly something that is not going to help the non-communicable diseases epidemic in our country, not going to help the growing obesity across urban, rural populations, across age groups, across genders. So clearly, and it is clearly something which is actually going to help the industry. In fact, it is a careful crafted strategy to actually help sell the bad food as good food. Because here we are saying that you can have more stars by adding some positive nutrients and make the bad food as good food. But we all know bad food like junk food can actually not become a good food. The level of salt will still remain the same as it is.
Mr. Khurana, I see this is a lost opportunity given that for so many years, your organization, including, has been talking about the need to have front of the pack labeling, which has helped, in fact, bring down or rather raise awareness about sodium content in a food product, a packaged food product, and help people in different ways in making more informed choices about the kind of food in package that they intake. If the FSSAI brings about these health star ratings, I would say that this is a lost opportunity to have, in fact, that chance to tell people, listen, this is a packaged food product. To begin with, this is not food, this is high in sodium content, this is high in sugar content. That opportunity has been lost.
Yeah, completely agree with you. It's quite disheartening in that sense because we have been working on this issue for about 10 years with FSSAI, and I can tell you there have been series of committees and series of drafts by FSSAI itself. This story has largely been of delays as well as dilutions, but this particular moment is the lowest point in this entire scenario. We are basically now trying to say that bad food can have stars. We know stars are aspirational. It's actually, as I said, it's something which people tend to relate to. I mean, this is something which is not electrical appliance, which has more stars for more energy saving. But here, the more stars would really not mean that the product has become healthy.
Yes. Mr. Khurana, do talk to us a little about and do tell our viewers and in countries where front of the labeling, rules are implemented on packaged foods. What's been the change in buyer behavior?
Yeah, so let me give you some history around it. Several countries across the world have adopted one or the other way of front of pack labeling. When we were part of the committee, and the committee was actually led by FSSAI in 2013, it recommended traffic light labeling as the front of pack labeling model. Now, the question at that time, that was the best practice, but it was very clear that it has its own problems. It gives you mixed messages. So the front of pack labeling has evolved over the years, and in the last 5-7 years, it is very clear that countries which have adopted warning labels as front of pack label are actually solving the purpose of fulfilling the purpose. And the purpose is informing consumers about each nutrient and discouraging the consumption of packaged foods. On-field studies in several countries, particularly in Latin American countries where it has been there for quite a while, clearly tell that this is the most effective model. In fact, most simple and most effective model in informing the consumer, informing the food habits, right diet towards right dietary choices, discouraging junk food consumption. So there are clear results, and these results are from the field. These results are not based on some one or two studies. These are from field. So clearly, and on the other hand, let me just also add here, health star rating, which we are moving ahead in our country right now, and I hope that doesn't happen, is something which is rejected by almost all of these countries. As on today, as we sit, no country in the world has health star rating as a mandatory labeling system.
Okay.
It is only adopted in Australia and New Zealand, that too as voluntary. This was adopted in 2015, I guess. About a 5-year review done in 2019-20 suggests that only 1/3 of the products have actually health star rating, health star labels on them, because the companies can pick and choose. If their product is getting more stars, they would be happy to do so, and they would selectively not do so in other products. So clearly, we are basically trying to come up with a system in our country which is globally rejected, which is
Okay.
flawed by design.
Flawed by design and a lost opportunity as well, given that front of the package labeling would essentially help consumers make an informed choice. Because, Mr. Kurana, I think the problem here also is that many of us are not reading labels, certainly not flipping the pack of chips behind and checking out, the sodium content, the salt content. I think front of the package labeling is all the more important because this information is just so in your face, like it is for tobacco products. And that's the reason why there has to be a certain sense of shock when it comes to consuming these foods or giving it to your 5-year-old. I think that sense of shock and that sense of information is missing, and hence we do not think twice before giving a big pack of chips to our kids. I think once that information is there right on the front, it's going to help us make that choice better.
Yeah, that has been the idea. Before this, it was only nutrition fact label or nutrition information label at the back of the pack, which basically are difficult to read, difficult to see, difficult to understand, difficult to comprehend, need a lot of number skills, math, cognition, a lot of that. And we also know, on the other hand, the literacy and language barriers in our country, let's say. Even in the Western world or the developed world, it was very clearly recognized that we need to have something upfront, so that even though, because it is also about how much time you really spend while picking up a particular product. You don't really read labels. Consumers do not really read labels, and if they are difficult to see and understand, they would even, in fact, that also is a strategy to confuse the consumer. Somehow common sense prevailed, and this entire idea of front of pack labeling for ingredients of concern came up, and globally it is evolving. It has reached to a situation where now we have some very established form, which is warning labels, which is also leading to good results. And what we are here trying to do is kind of adopting a model which is rejected, as I said, and which is not really aimed at solving the problem. It is not really aimed at addressing the health crisis in our country.
And help make the consumer the right choice.
Yeah.
Viewers, the idea is that the viewer and the consumer essentially should be informed about the food item that you pick. To begin with, if it's in a packet, it has got preservatives, it's got high sodium, it's got high salt. A lot of many of these food items that are now available in the market have sodium and salt content which is way beyond the permissible limit. Now, how are you going to know about this? The best way to do it is to ensure front of the pack labeling. This is something that has been spoken about for a while now. The need of the hour is to do it urgently, more so in India, given the burden of non-communicable diseases, diabetes type 2, also obesity, for example, that we're seeing in the younger children nowadays. That's on the rise in a country like us. And that's the reason why we need to make these very informed decisions, when to consume and how much to consume, given the kind of warning labels that are there in front of the pack, which have been proven to be effective in influencing buyers' decision in countries like Chile, for example, where it has been implemented. Mr. Amit Khurana, thank you so much for joining us. Viewers, we hope and pray that the FSSAI takes note of these concerns and does not blanketly implement the health star rating system, which essentially does not give the consumer the right information about the sodium, salt and sugar content on the food packet, that the pack of chips or biscuits or whichever packaged food he or she is picking. The right information is only available through front of the package labeling, the right kind of labeling, and that is extremely important. Thank you for connecting with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Sneha. Bye bye.
Thank you.